Hey, I'm Jamey Ice, Fort Worth native, musician turned entrepreneur, and someone who loves diving into the stories behind great brands. In each episode, we sit down with the leaders, dreamers, and builders who are shaping our community, pulling back the curtain on their journey and the real lessons and tactics that got them to where they are today. No fluff, no highlight reels, just real conversations with remarkable people about what it takes to build something that truly matters. I'm your host, and this is Stories with Soul. All right, welcome to Stories with Soul. Today, I'm thrilled to host Hal Brown, my friend who I've been asking you to come join us for probably a couple years now. So he's finally here. Hal is the founder and owner of Panther City Media Group, which is the powerhouse behind Fort Worth Magazine and Fort Worth Inc. Over his career, Hal has played a pivotal role in shaping Fort Worth's media landscape, launching numerous successful publications and supporting over 225 local nonprofits through his magazine's resources. Hal's a Fort Worth native, a TCU alum. He got the big old TCU ring there, so we'll get into some of that. And is deeply tied to the city he loves. From playing safety on TCU's football team to leading Panther City Media Group, he's the driving force of so much of the city's storytelling. Hal's commitment to Fort Worth shines in every aspect of his work. So Hal, thank you for joining me.
Happy to be here.
Glad.
Like your new studio too.
Thanks, man. Thank you. So let's kick it off in the beginning. You are a Fort Worth native, and then you stayed here for college.
Yep.
So you've lived. You went to Heights. Is that correct?
I did. Yep.
Okay. Went to Heights.
Yes.
Went to TCU. Did you ever leave?
What's that?
Did you ever leave at all?
No. Actually, so people have asked the question, "Where are you from?" And I like to. This is something I brought up in 2014. We had the protesters from the La Leche organization. Do you know what La Leche?
No.
It's a breastfeeding organization, and
the magazine had protesters.
Yes, in front of our office
from a breastfeeding organization.
Yes, because they were protesting us for a story we did. And CBS was there, and NBC, we had all the cameras, and they asked a question about where I was from, and I said I was born and breastfed right here in Fort Worth.
Okay. So is that your tagline now?
Yeah, I'm born and breastfed right here, and I said, I have no issue with breastfeeding whatsoever.
Uh-huh.
It was a writer that was he was a opinion writer, right? It wasn't somebody that was from our staff.
Mm-hmm.
And so she just happened to write something about being distracted in church by somebody doing that, and they jumped on it, right? And they say, "Hey, opportunity!"
You pissed off some moms.
So it was a lot of news, but it was. I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Some people were mad at us, but not very many.
That's some. I bet you have. We'll get into one of my questions I want to go into later is people you have made angry, because if you're doing any sort of journalism and it's meaningful or interesting, you're going to push people one way.
Yes.
You're going to push. So we'll get into that. So born and raised here.
Yep.
And then you played football, right?
Yep.
Okay. Played football.
Yep.
And went to TCU to play football.
Yes. Born here, went to Country Day early. I failed kindergarten. Couldn't get the square block in the round hole. Did that twice, and then we transferred into Tanglewood, which is where we lived in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
So went to Tanglewood, and then in second grade, Fort Worth was late in segregation schools, and we were bused to Como. So we were the first class ever in segregation, and so we were bused to Como, which was an interesting experience. So that's where I learned to fight.
Really?
I had my first fight and my probably 20th fight there.
Uh-huh.
And then they came back to Tanglewood, and then we ended up going to McLean. I mean, to Stripling instead of McLean.
Yeah.
Because Stripling is not the school you go to if you're coming out of our Tanglewood district. Mm-hmm. But we did that because my parents didn't want me to go to Pascal. They wanted me to go to Heights. They had a better football team.
Okay.
So I couldn't go there, and I'd have to sit out my first year in high school if I didn't come from a feeder school. So had to go to Stripling, right, to play football at Heights and not have to sit out.
Okay.
So we went to Tanglewood and then Stripling, and then Heights. Yeah. And I was going to go to Texas and do the football route, and was registered in Jester Dormitory.
Oh, you were like gonna go.
I was done. I was ready. And I ended up staying here last minute. Jim Wacker was the coach that was coming in, replaced F.A. Dry, and he had won 2 national championships at Southwest Texas State. So he was coming in. I thought I had a better chance on playing with him coming in as a new coach.
Okay.
So I stayed here.
Yeah. And was TCU good at that time?
My freshman year, we had won 1 game.
Oh, gosh. So
the
answer was no.
Hadn't been to a bowl game in 19 years.
Yeah.
Now, granted, there weren't as many bowls back then.
Yeah.
My dad was an All-American. He played at Vanderbilt when they beat Auburn and the Gator Bowl in 55.
Okay.
They had like 5 or 6 bowls.
Wow.
And then when I played in the 80s, we had 14 bowls, and now there's 44, I think, right?
Yeah.
It means a lot more. It meant a lot more then going to one. So we went to the Bluebonnet Bowl my second year. We were the biggest comeback in the history of college football.
No way.
We won 1 game in 83, 84, and then 84, 85. We were the media darling, went to the Bluebonnet Bowl, ended up losing to in the heartbreaking loss, but it was Fort Worth was purple. You couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't go like anywhere that having people buy us dinner.
How cool.
Because they were so happy that TCU finally winning.
Yeah.
So
how fun. And so your dad played. So y'all kind of athletic family.
Yes. At least my dad and my twin sister and I, but the other ones not so much.
Yeah. And so were you riding too? Like cuz that's you have sort of this juxtaposition of athlete jock who then goes and becomes a journalist. Like those are kind of like one. Well, you think of one as like the creative guy with the notepad, and then you're out there smashing people on the football field. So were you like a writer? Were you into journalism? Like, did you go? Was you? Because that's what you studied at TCU, right?
Well, interesting that there was not a choice of the matter. I ended up in this journalistic industry not because I was a gifted writer.
Okay.
At TCU at that time, there was a ad PR program, and it was out of the journalism department, right? And so if you wanted to be a journalist, if you want to be a video journalist, if you wanted to do anything on that end of the business, you were in that school, but you also could be in advertising, a creative advertising person. That was not graphics necessarily, a graphic school, but this is, any on the business side of advertising. So the advertising is where I wanted to go.
Okay, you wanted to go into advertising.
Not journalism.
Yeah.
So there was a show on at that time called 30-something. There's a bunch of really cool ad agency dudes, and I'm like, I like that. Right brain, creative. I was good with people. So I was like, that looks like a lot of fun. And so I had to. Your sophomore year, you have to declare a major, and so it was that or nothing. I mean, it was like I didn't know what I wanted to do. You have to declare a major.
Yeah.
And so I go, And my roommate at the time was Bob Lilly, not obviously the first draft pick ever of the Dallas Cowboys, Bob Lilly. It was his son.
Okay.
And so he and I were roommates, and he goes, man, if I had to do this again, I'd do ad PR. I go, that sounds good.
Yeah. Sign me up.
Sign me up. So that was my objective to do that, which is what I did when I graduated.
So you graduated and went into advertising world.
Say again?
So you went into advertising world.
Yes. I worked for 3 different ad agencies, and that's on the account service side. And then ended up, it's actually obviously how I ended up in the publishing business, but that's a story we can talk about maybe in a bit. But, it's just kind of right time, right place, taking opportunities that come. And there's an opportunity that came, and the guy that hired me in the 3rd ad agency that I worked at was like a huge entrepreneur. Didn't graduate, didn't go to college, and is a guy who I worked with as a partner for 12 years.
On the publishing side.
Yes, but started out on the agency side.
Okay, so he had an agency. You were working for him.
That's correct.
Stories with Soul is brought to you by my company, 6F Storytelling, where we help entrepreneurs and small businesses grow through the power of storytelling. If you're stuck watching competitors get all the attention, or you're tired of wasting money on random marketing tactics that don't work, you're not alone. As an entrepreneur who's built multiple businesses, I know firsthand how frustrating it can be to have a great product or have a great service, but struggle to get the attention you deserve. Because here's the truth. Being good at what you do isn't enough anymore. You need a way to stand out and connect with your ideal customers. That's why we created the Storytelling Pathway, a proven framework for story-driven marketing that turns solid businesses into brands people can't stop talking about. So whether you're just starting out or if you're ready to scale, we can help you craft and share your unique story in a way that attracts the right customers and drives real growth. So if you're ready to stand out, visit 6thAvStorytelling.com today. I would love to chat with you. And then how did you wind up doing the magazines?
So I was hired, I don't know, this is like back in 91 or something like that. And there was a small depression that year. And so it wasn't a major one, but it's on this, it's in the record books. And so a lot of businesses were pulling back.
The ad budgets.
Ad budgets. Yeah. One of our biggest clients was Michael's Arts and Crafts Stores.
Okay.
And they had, at that time, 450 locations. So they're not small. And it was a big account. It was a big national account.
Yeah.
Which was, for Fort Worth, Texas, it was a big deal. All the ad agencies are really big. We're in Dallas. Even Dallas didn't have a lot of them. You had to go to L.A. or New York. And so that's kind of, I love Fort Worth. I didn't want to move.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to move to Dallas for sure. And most other people did. Most people were trying to get out of Fort Worth at that time. It's not what it is today.
Yeah.
I did, and I love Fort Worth, wanted to stay here. So I took the agency job. So Michael's pulled their business. I'd been there a few months, maybe 6 months, and they took their business in-house. And so I'm like, oh, great. I come on board, and I lose the biggest client, right?
Oh, for the agency. Yeah.
That's not good. But the departure was not because of us. We hadn't done anything wrong. They liked us a lot, had no issue. They were just trying to save money.
Yeah.
Right. And so that they pulled it away, and we went back to them and said, we got to figure out, we have a great relationship. How do we keep these folks? So we approached them about a concept. There are, at the time, there was 2 craft magazines that were just not well produced. Mm-hmm. And so we designed ads to put in those crappy magazines.
Okay.
And other media we did for them. But so we thought through it, and we had creative people, we had advertising copywriters, and we had art directors, and we said, why don't we take a run at publishing a magazine? And so
a Michael's magazine.
We turned this off. And so we approached them with the concept. We said, how about we do a magazine that we'll produce. We'll put your name on it. It'll be Arts and Crafts Magazine, and we'll have Michael's logo. We were doing some book publishing at the time, so we had some distribution experience. So we said, we'll put it on the newsstand. And
so not just in Michael's, you're going to we'll go
on the national newsstand. We had ability to do that. So because we had done it on the book side, so we had a little understanding of that.
Your agency had published books.
That's I told you my partner. He was a huge entrepreneur, and so he hired me to run the agency because he started doing some book publishing. Mm-hmm. Same company, out of the ad agency.
So he had the distribution connections.
That's right.
Okay,
that's right.
What a cool idea.
Yeah. So we approached them and said, "Hey, we'll give you 3 full-page ads. We'll put your name on the cover. All the crafts that we make and put in the magazine will come from your store." And all we ask is that you sell it at the registers. And they said, how much is that going to cost us? And we said, it's going to cost you nothing.
Whoa.
We'll do it for free.
Really? That's a no-brainer.
Okay, see. And they had editorial control. So that literally we had to get it approved, every issue approved.
But y'all just bet on people will buy this.
Right.
And if people buy it?
Yeah. It was a cash cow. It was so...
So y'all launched the magazine.
Yeah.
Had never done that.
Right.
And it's in stores.
Yeah.
And people are buying it, and it does.
So crafters are passionate about crafting. Okay. That's why these stores exist, right? I mean, some people are passionate about reading, and some people, I mean, you know, it's a national pastime, crafting, I guess, and so they have a real loyal audience, and they have 450 stores, and there's 4 or 5 registers at every store, and we have placement at every register at 450 stores. I mean, you'd have to trip over yourself and not sell them. And plus, it's just stuff that's here, right? Yeah. So it immediately was an incredible success story, and so we used that later, that same model. You know, we did it everywhere except for Fort Worth Magazine, probably. But everything else most everything else had a tie to it. That was really successful, had a tie to it, where we did something not traditionally, but we did something that had an advantage over the other people that were doing it.
Like, what do you mean?
Like Michael's. Yeah. The example there is not only did they sell it in their stores, but when you walk into an ad agency or you walk into a balloons company and you say, hey, we're with Jack's Arts and Crafts and we'd like to sell you an ad. They're like, okay, I don't know who you are. I don't know who Jack is. When you say I'm with Michael's Arts and Crafts magazine, they assume that we worked at Michael's. They've been trying to get balloons in Michael's forever.
Oh, okay.
Or they have balloons in Michael's. Yeah. They take your call. The president of the company takes your call. Yeah. And they love you because you're one of their they sell more of your product than anybody. Yeah. So that advertising introduction is easier. Oh gosh.
And you have your own distribution. It's like, yeah. It was like when Starbucks was like, we should start selling music back when if they would sell CDs because they had all these stores and all. Yeah. So you brought a bunch of stuff here. Do you have one of the original Michaels?
Actually, I didn't bring a Michaels.
But you're doing that, and it's going well.
Going well,
and you're like, let's do more of these.
Yeah, I still had the agency, and so it was my client. It was an agency client, so we had 2 divisions kind of the company. They decided it was better to be in the other division, the book division. So they bought me out, in essence, and moved it. And then I was like, well, I really like that.
The magazine thing.
I like that.
So you inadvertently fell into magazine world.
Yes. I did take a staunch away. I actually went to work at Witherspoon, and then my future partner, the guy who hired me at the agency, called me up and said, hey, I want to have you come work here. I've got an idea and I'd like you to do it with me. And so I said, let's do it. This is what I want to do. And so I came back, and then he and I started a new company, and then we broke off from the agency and book side and started the magazine company. So we bought Michael's.
You bought that magazine
from his company. Yeah. He used his stock, and he took out his partners in Michael's, and then he divested himself from all the other products that they were putting out. So it was him and I. I was a minority partner, by the way, very important. And so we did the same thing with Bass Pro Shops. A very similar thing with Bass Pro Shops.
Because Bass Pro Shop fans are hardcore fans.
Yes, hunting, fishing guys, right? And you put Bass Pro Shops on there, and people are, this is they didn't have all the stores they have today, but it was still the iconic. I mean, it was the big time leader.
Yeah, and so you're approaching these as ad guy. You're not writing articles,
right?
Okay. Nope. You're not doing any article kind of stuff. Nope. You're putting it together and selling it.
Yeah.
And getting other folks to advertise in it.
Yeah, so I think I'm more of an entrepreneur than I am a journalist. I can write. I mean, obviously I went to school for it, but it's not my gift.
Yeah. You sent me your Culture Index profile.
Oh, yeah.
Which I talk a lot about Culture Index on this. We use it as it's profile assessment, but you're a rainmaker. Is that right?
Sure. Yes, I was. I sent it to you, but I haven't looked at it. We I guess subscribed to it for a couple of years and used it for new hires and to analyze our internal people. Yeah. We did it on all of our employees, and so I just forwarded that to you. I haven't looked at it in 5 years.
Yeah. So rainmakers are called rainmaker because they literally can go outside and dance and make it rain.
Yeah.
They love sales. They kind of have this like magic and charisma where doors just magically open for them and things happen and they get people excited, but they hate being put in a box.
Yeah.
Like, don't put me in a box or give me, I would assume you have a hard time like following rules if you think the rules are hard.
Yeah, rules are suggestions. I like suggestions. I mean, guidelines is what I call them.
Uh-huh.
My wife is opposite of that.
Yes. Yeah.
She's a rule follower. I'm not.
Yeah, but rainmakers, like they just kind of make it happen. But they don't like doing the same thing over and over again. But they're always really talented. But then draw outside the lines.
Yeah, kind of ADHD folks. A lot of them are probably that way.
Yeah. So not a true journalist. You're entrepreneur, selling, putting the deal together. And so you'll have this model now where you're doing Michael's and you're doing Bass Pro Shop.
Yep.
And then you run me some of the other magazines you did.
So run you through what?
Some of the other magazines.
So we actually did, I think we separated.
Pet Life. You did a Pet Life one.
A pet magazine, yeah. Uh-huh. And so the connection there was, again, I told you we didn't do traditional stuff. It looked like a traditional magazine, and it was, but there was this twist to it. So the twist for that was we had a relationship with Ralston, not a huge, but on the agency side, we knew of them, and so we worked a deal with Ralston Purina, and we were doing Pet Life as a separate publication that we owned, but then we would brand specific issues for Pet Life. I mean, for Ralston Purina. So it'd be Ralston Purina Pet Life. Mm-hmm. And we utilize the content from the regular issue of Pet Life, and we'd add some other Ralston Purina information in their editorial as well. And so then we would send that out to all of we basically produce it for them, send it to them. They just buy the copies for us and they distribute it to their list.
So you built in,
which were hundreds of thousands.
Yeah. Wow.
So we were sending hundreds of thousands of copies of, or selling hundreds of thousands of copies of Ralston Purina Pet Life to Ralston Purina.
Yeah. So you kind of have found this hack of how to sell magazines without, you have this built-in audience.
Yeah, it helps to have that. And I said I did it with all the publications except for Fort Worth Magazine, which is why that's a slower grow. Everything else was national too.
Yeah, and y'all did a cowboy. We
bought a magazine called Cowboys and Country, which was, if you see Cowboys and Indians magazine, it was very similar to that.
Okay.
We bought that one from a gal that was, it wasn't ever really profitable for us, and we ended up selling it. But
what is Shuz magazine?
What?
Shuz. S-H-U-Z?
Oh, no, it's Shoes.
Shoes.
Shoes. S-H, yeah, so it was Shoes. You remember, Cigar Aficionado, if you're familiar. So I guess we need to back up a little bit because, we were launching all these magazines in that period of 5 years. I think we started 10 magazines.
Holy cow.
I mean, so in 5 years, 10 magazines. So it's like every 6 months we got a new magazine published.
A new idea.
And they're all national titles. And so in that period, right at that 5-year mark, Michael's decided that they wanted to own
the magazine.
We were building this huge Michael's magazine, and they realized they were helping us build it, but they didn't own it. Mm-hmm. So they bought it. Well, we ended up selling it to a publishing company, not in Fort Worth, not related to Michael's, but we continued to publish it on a contract basis. But we sold it. We had it for 5 years, and we just had the licensing agreement with Michael's, and it had a time limit, so we couldn't do it forever. And so there was some risk that we could lose it, but they were happy with it. Mm-hmm. But anyway, bottom line is we sold it for like $3.6 million.
Wow.
And that was 5 years after we started it.
That's a big win. So
I like this business better than the advertising business. So no ad agency is going to sell for that kind of multiple.
Yeah.
It just wasn't going to happen. So that's why I really like the publishing side. I like owning something that I can flip and sell that has value other than just a service business. Yeah. It's hard to sell those because, so much of it is the people that work for you, and that's kind of it. Like an ad agency, it's hard to sell those because clients they come
and they go. And
and their relationships. And if you take the Rainmaker away, are they really going to be as successful? Mm-hmm. So they're much harder to sell, and the multiples are much smaller.
Mm-hmm. So y'all kind of found like we're going to build these up and sell them? That was kind of the goal.
I don't think we thought we were going to sell them. We didn't think that way. It's just the timing.
Hey, I'm interrupting this episode because I want to share something with you that I'm really excited about. One of my biggest missions in life is to make entrepreneurship easier than it was for me. After spending over a decade building multiple businesses, I've learned some hard lessons, often the expensive way. And here's the thing, I see so many talented entrepreneurs struggling with the exact same challenges that I faced. They've got great products, they've got great services, but they're stuck trying to figure out how to stand out and how to grow. They're wasting time and money on random marketing tactics, they're watching competitors get all the attention, and they're feeling overwhelmed about what to focus on next. That's exactly why my team and I just created 2 incredible free resources that I genuinely wish I had when I was starting out. The first is our storytelling marketing assessment. In just 5 minutes, it'll show you exactly where your marketing stands today and give you a clear roadmap of what to work on next. No more guessing, no more wasting time on strategies that don't work. And the second is our complete storytelling pathway framework. This is the exact system that we've used to help hundreds of businesses grow through the power of story. This isn't just a theory, it's a practical, proven framework that shows you step by step how to turn your business into a brand people can't stop talking about. I'm giving both of these away completely for free because I truly believe that when local businesses thrive, our whole community thrives. This isn't about making a quick buck. It's about sharing what works and helping other entrepreneurs succeed. You can get both resources right now at 6thAvestorytelling.com/free. I promise you these are absolute game changers. They're going to help you get clear on exactly what you need to do to grow your business and give you the roadmap to make it happen. Don't miss out on these. Head over to 6thAvestorytelling.com/free and grab them now. All right, back to our conversation.
But we got pretty cocky. And thought we were doing pretty good, and we knew what we were doing, and then we went out and did the shoes thing, because you had asked about that. Mm-hmm. My partner, he was running that one. I was running, we had a Signature Kitchens and Baths magazine, which I ran, and huge cash cow for us, and that had a catch to it as well. Every single page was paid.
Wow.
It was incredibly successful. And so he decided we were going to do this magazine called Shoes, like Cigar Aficionado. Cigar Aficionado, who would think that you could be buying cigars for $25 a cigar or more? That's people that are passionate about cigars.
Yeah.
If you look at the advertisers in Cigar Aficionado, it was every major luxury car company, Rolex. I mean, the highest of income people. Yeah. So that's who their advertisers were. So we were going to do that with shoes because
tailor it towards women.
They'll pay $1,500 for a pair of Louis Vuittons, right? I mean, that's easy. So we go, hey, this is a very similar industry. They'll pay a lot of money, and if we're bringing in the eyeballs of all these women. People will buy that. Advertisers will buy that because I can't reach that audience many other places. Ultra high end. The problem is we didn't have a tie-in, and
you didn't have the built-in distribution.
We could put it on the newsstand.
But meaning the way like Michael's had all these, you're at every register.
Right. So we called in. We were Shoes Magazine. We didn't have any. It wasn't Neiman Marcus shoes. Mm-hmm. It was just Shoes. Mm-hmm. SHUZ. And we had to have we got a post office box in New York, and we had like one little tiny little office, but it's expensive. Mm-hmm. And so we had to kind of fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
We never made it.
Okay. So
we faked it, but it
didn't go well.
We ended up selling it like right before, and we were about to put it down, and we luckily sold it before.
Okay.
We put it down. They didn't know that, but if they didn't buy it, we weren't going to continue to publish it.
Mm-hmm.
So sold that. And then we did, like I said, like in 5 years, like 10 magazines, and we did another bass fishing magazine. Mm-hmm. And we did of course, like the Ralston Purina. We did a automotive magazine tied into Chief Auto Parts.
Okay.
They're not so passionate.
Auto parts people.
Yeah, they're not as passionate about it, so that didn't work.
Okay.
But yeah, and then So we did a lot of magazines. We did Signature Kitchens and Baths, and that one really cool because it was high-end luxury. So if you looked back in that time, if you looked at a kitchen and bath magazine, Better Homes and Gardens would do them, and they'd have 2 or 3 pictures, and there'd be like 2,400 words talking all about it. You're in the home building business, and who controls the decision with most of the design of the house? The female in the house, right? So Signature Kitchens and Baths, they don't care about all the copy. They want those cabinets.
Yeah.
I want to have that countertop. I want that sink. I want that refrigerator. I want those hardwoods. I want, and so they come into the design office, they pull all these magazine pictures and they say, this is what I like, right? I'm sure you've done that with people and said, this is the kitchen I want.
Yeah, now it's Pinterest. Now you're doing Pinterest, but then you're probably clipping out.
Oh yeah, you're pulling them out of magazines. So we flipped that and we said, let's do
picture heavy.
We'll just every other page. So we'll do 2 pages and we'll have a big picture that takes over 3/4 of the page, and we'll have 2 other pictures. And then we're going to have just the listing of what all the products are. That's what they want. They want to know what refrigerator is that, what brand cabinetry and countertop is that. So we listed all of those things on there. And it was a huge success. Put it on the newsstand. This is interesting. We put it on the newsstand, and it was selling for $6.95, which was higher than any other magazine.
Oh, really?
Nobody else was putting magazines out at that price, but it was a very high-end kitchen bath magazine, like really high-end. And so it was great, and we were making tons of money. The newsstand sell-through was amazing. And my partner goes, well, I think we can get more. And I go, $6.95, dude, no one's selling anything more than $6.95. I mean, Time Warner, there's all these book magazine publishers, they're not doing that. They're pretty smart. If we could do it, they probably would. And so he and I argued about it. And so I go, okay, let's do a bet. I bet you that we can't sell it for $9.95. If we do, we'll have less sales. So one issue, we put out 2 versions, exact same magazine. One was at $9.95, and we had a different. And another one was at $6.95.
Same cover.
Same everything except for the price.
It wasn't bigger?
No, it was the exact same magazine. And
what happened?
The $9.95 outsold the $6.95.
No way, because people think they're getting some sort of luxury higher end.
It wasn't that. I think they just didn't care. It wasn't like it was.
Oh, so it wasn't like side by side on the the same.
They didn't even know. They were just buying it, right? So the point is, they bought it. And
it was price agnostic because they were just that into it.
Right. So then we did it again, and $10.95. Then we did it again, $12.95, and then we did it at $14.95. And guess what? Go look on the newsstand today. Time Warner and every other kitchen or home magazine that's on the newsstand, $10, $12.95.
No way.
So they, we didn't know what we were doing. We just Fort Worth guys that are, figuring it
out. Playing around with
we're just playing around.
So at this time, are you making more money from actually selling it? Like, do you make money selling it, or are you making money from ads? Or is this just kind of a combination?
Selling, you mean selling the businesses, the magazines?
Selling the like I'm buying a $12.95 magazine.
Right. You make money with magazines, either advertising magazines. or you sell them on the newsstand value, or advertising, or subscriptions. So there's 3 options, right?
But what's making you the most money on those?
Depends on the magazine. Signature Kitchen to Baths, newsstand.
Okay.
People, once you buy your kitchen, you don't want to read about kitchens anymore, right? So that's not a subscription product.
Okay.
Michael's is a subscription product
because they're like, I want to see the new crochet pattern.
But it's also a great newsstand product too. So that one did both.
Okay.
Right. Advertising really though, for the most, it's usually really strong. That's it, because if they're doing well in circulation, you can sell more ads. The more copies you have, the higher you can price your advertising. So Signature Kitchen to Baths, cash cow on the newsstand, and also as a subscriber. It brought in, not subscriber, on the newsstand, Signature Kitchens and advertising. And then, it just depends on the product. So Bass Pro Shops, the Outdoor World magazine, that's a big subscription one, and on the newsstand. And you walked into an ad agency and said, I'm with Bass Pro Shops. They're going to take your call.
Yeah.
You want to go sell a buck call, and you say you're Bass Pro Shops, they're much more likely to buy ads from you, right, than not.
Yeah. So you're in your 20s doing this? 30s?
I'm in my upper 20s.
Upper 20s, and you're starting magazines and flipping magazines. Sounds like it's going well. And y'all sell like, and then what happened next? And this was Magnolia, right? This was
Magnolia Media Group.
This was Magnolia.
Mark and I left. I guess in the 91, I think it was. We left the company and started with Michael's, and then Bass Pro Shops Outdoor World was a concept.
Yeah.
And then he and I started all those other publications, and so I guess it was 97. We started, 1997. They were building Bass Hall. And we said, you know what? Why don't we do something with them? Because this is like, for Fort Worth, Bass Hall
was a big deal.
It's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
And we were downtown in the Tandy building. And so we were like, let's, we approached the Basses about doing a product, a magazine, kind of a book magazine product that followed the build of the structure all the way from, when it started to the end. We'd photograph it all the way through.
And it was just about Bass Hall?
It was just Bass Hall. It was basically an inaugural book talking about the creation of, and then we would have it, we'd sell it on the newsstand, but it would be a short, like a window. And that really wasn't a profit center much for us, but it was just, we'd sell advertising to it. And there was a little bit of a twist, because if you wanted to be if you were a subcontractor building Bass Hall, do you want to support this? I mean, Bass Hall, they just wrote you a check for $3 million to do some construction.
Yeah.
And then we're calling up and asking them for $5,000 to run an ad to say, we're happy to be a part of this, right? Yeah. So there was a little bit of a tie there.
Okay, that's smart.
And so we produced that, and we sold, and this is, 27 years ago? We sold $300,000 in advertising.
Wow. And is that a lot?
That's a lot.
Okay.
I mean, it's just for one issue. Yeah. I mean, for one issue, I've never sold $300,000 in one issue in any magazine.
Okay.
Right. So, that's a lot. So $300,000, for that.
So y'all are kind of freaking out like this.
Well, we weren't freaking out.
This was a good idea.
High-fiving.
Yeah.
This is cool. This did more than what we actually thought it was going to do.
And then did people buy the magazine too?
Yeah, but it wasn't as much of that. It was advertising. That was just an ad play, right? So people wanted to support Bass Hall. They wanted to support the Basses. They wanted to be a part of this project. It's huge for Fort Worth. And so they advertised. And so we said, gosh, if we can get $300,000 out of people for this, maybe it's time Fort Worth had its own magazine.
And that wasn't a thing?
No.
There's newspapers, Star Telegram,
the Behemoth.
Yeah.
I know you've had Rich on. It was a whole different ball game, and they were massive. They were one of the top 20 or 30 magazines in the country, and it was just two different products completely. They had tried a city magazine a couple of times, and the Star Telegram had a product called Indulge.
Yeah, I remember Indulge.
Yeah, so Indulge was the city magazine, kind of. Yeah. It was a high-end glossy magazine product that the Star Telegram produced.
But y'all were like, let's start a city magazine. And no one had really done that before.
No one had done.
Were other cities doing it?
Who?
Were other cities doing it?
Oh yeah. So one of our, we're a member of City Regional Magazine Association, which is a really great organization. And I'm the Rainmaker guy, and I like shortcuts, and instead of research and development, we like to rip off and duplicate. Right? So if somebody's doing something in Boston or Philly and it's working,
let's go do it.
We're talking to each other at a conference in Colorado. I want that idea. I'm gonna steal it from you, because no one knows. You could do it exactly like theirs. Yeah. And what are the chances you're gonna get somebody from Philly that's in Fort Worth that goes, hey, this looks like the thing that we saw in Philly? No one does that.
Yeah.
So we still do a lot of that with CRMA.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So y'all launched Fort Worth Magazine officially in 98?
December of 98.
December of 98.
Yep.
And it was received well, it went well? Yes,
it was. I mean, it wasn't like...
were people excited about it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was. But, they did have Indulge, and...
but Fort Worth, people love Fort Worth.
They do. And most cities love their city, but I don't know that people from Detroit, even though they have a great city magazine, one of the best actually are Detroit.
They probably love it now.
Better, but they went through it. Yeah, I'd much rather be Fort Worthians. It just feels like when people come here, they go, "Man, I love Fort Worth."
Yeah, there's a pride.
I told you I watched Rich's podcast, and I guess he was one of your first ones. Or anyway, I saw that.
Rich from the Business Press.
Yeah, from the Business Press. He was a Star Telegram before, and he was talking about when he came to Star Telegram, like everybody from the papers that he worked with wanted to come to Fort Worth.
Yeah.
Right, because
people loved it. My wife took a I think she's like in this PR. She was in town with Visit Fort Worth from New York to the rodeo.
Okay.
This past Friday, and so but the girl from New York was like Melissa was introducing her to people, and she was like, I can't believe how much people love their city here. It's so crazy. She was like, everybody she's like, I'm a publicist from New York doing a story on Fort Worth, and everyone was like, anyway, she was blown away at how much people loved the city. But you okay, we got a stack of magazines here in front of us. And so do you have the original magazine?
I do.
The first issue?
Yeah, it's the one. That's it, actually, yeah.
This one?
Yeah.
This is the first one.
So you'll notice it has Texas on there. The name Fort Worth, Texas. So we had an idea of doing, because Austin didn't have a good magazine, San Antonio didn't, and Waco didn't. So our concept was, hey, let's do Fort Worth, Texas, Waco, Texas, Austin, Texas, San Antonio, Texas. So they would all have that Texas part, right?
Oh, so you were going to go do these in other cities.
Right. So the idea of the Texas was, let's make it different, and we can
tie it all in with that.
Yeah, we can make it a product of all the cities.
Old Home Supply.
Play off on that. So we ended up dropping it, so you can tell that someone's been a long-time subscriber or advertiser when they refer to Fort Worth Magazine as Fort Worth, Texas Magazine.
Okay.
And there's still a lot of faithful out there that do.
Look how cool the photos are. You can tell the photos are film.
Yes, that's right. That's pretty good.
Yeah, they have that kind of cool graininess to them. How fun. And then this is the Bass Hall.
Yes, that's one that.
Oh, this is the beast. This is your $300,000 in ads.
Yes.
How cool is that? And so, did you do the San Antonio?
Never got around to that. Life happens, and
y'all slowed your pace a little bit.
Slowed a little bit, yeah. So that's kind of like where I'm like, it was doing 10 magazines in 5 years. Every time you open a magazine, it's like starting a company. Mm-hmm. It's not like you can just plug it and play.
Which is like having a baby, and it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And, it's not like we were starting, like we were doing like city magazines, and they were all city magazines. We were doing opportunity things. So we're doing pets.
So you're having to find like journalists who can write about fish.
You got to go, yeah.
I mean, journalists who are into crocheting,
right,
or into shoes, or into
or somebody that knows how to tie special fish knots, and hunting and fishing experts, and pet experts.
So you're having to go recruit people every single time.
Yeah, so it's not a plug and play for sure. And even though it was helpful, and actually the only reason we were able to start Fort Worth Magazine at the time and be successful is because we had the parent company, because we had the accounting department.
There's some economies of scale.
It's economies of scale.
Yeah,
exactly.
And so that was the Fort Worth Magazine was a turning point for y'all at some level. I mean, that's your world now.
Yes. It was not my world then.
It wasn't your world.
It was a speck on the.
It was okay.
Yeah. It was. As a matter of fact, we did it because we thought the only reason we did it is we felt like if we didn't do it, somebody else may, and we would regret it. Mm-hmm. We're publishing 10 magazines in 5 years, national magazines, and then somebody else comes out and publishes Fort Worth Magazine, and now they've come out with the first one.
Yeah, you're not letting them do it.
And so we said, you know what? Let's do this before they do it. And Fort Worth was growing. I mean, we were not a fraction of the size we are today. And so, Fort Worth we were downtown Tandy Center, and you could look at it 5:30 and there was nobody on the street, 5:30 on Friday afternoon. It's different today. So back then, it wasn't like we had $300,000 sold in that one product, right? The Bass Hall book, but we still, it wasn't a home run necessarily.
Yeah.
It wasn't. So it was a lot of work. And the other products were doing a whole lot more. So we were selling, the Signature Kitchens and Baths was killing it. And so the revenue that this produced was tiny compared to the others.
That's probably fun. You love Fort Worth.
Yes. Yeah. It was a project that we wanted to do, and we did. And, but we didn't really have a lot of focus on it. It was
kind of an afterthought.
Bringing a lot of money.
Yeah.
So fast forward, and I'd been doing this, and it's a lot of work. And I was COO of the company, and operations it was a lot, and I was living there. So it was like, I'm a minority owner here. I can't. And my partner, by the way, love him today. He's one of my dear friends, and one of the best thing ever happened to me is his mentorship. But I was a minority owner of a company, and I didn't want to remain that way.
You're like, I'm running it.
So I took a run at Signature Kitchens, using my stock and buying that from the company that I was the only other partner in.
Yeah.
And my partner was okay with it. I mean, he didn't want to lose me, but he knew that it would be good for me. And so I tried to. So you can use my stock, but it wouldn't give me enough to buy it. So I'd have to bring on an investor or
get a loan.
Yeah. And so I didn't know a lot of investors at that time, and I said, okay, I might just take this to the bank. And we were right at $1 million in sales. And by the way, the product it was the easiest magazine to publish. It required no employees. I have one art director that's worked on another title, and it can be put together by two people. And we were only publishing, I think it was 6 issues a year, maybe.
Okay.
And so it was really easy. There wasn't like any overhead to it. And we were clearing $1 million in revenue. It was, had an EBITDA of 30%.
Wow.
So we're making $300,000 in EBITDA. And I had done it for 5 years, 5 consistent years of doing it, 5 consistent years of newsstand sales I can show to the bank.
Yeah.
And no one would loan me the money.
Oh, the bank said no.
Because they don't do cash flow lending. And I didn't even know it. I'm like, well, I didn't know that. I didn't realize that I thought banks just loaned money.
They said no to that?
And so they didn't. I couldn't get the money to do it.
Yeah.
I've
been there many times.
It's frustrating. Banks don't like doing that cash flow lending. Some of them do, but most of them don't. And there's times, and I don't know, maybe at that time in our economy, but no one would do it. Had they done it, I probably wouldn't be sitting here because I would have done that. But a couple years later,
so you didn't do it. You didn't.
I didn't buy Signature Kitchens.
You tried and you couldn't get the money.
Right, couldn't do it. And I was also so busy, I didn't have time to, when the bank said no, I probably met with 4 or 5 banks, and none of them said yes. And so I was just, okay, I'll just
keep running.
I'm staying pretty busy. And so I said, Fort Worth Magazine is not no one was paying any attention to it internally. We didn't spend a lot of time on it because it was not bringing a lot of money comparatively to the other stuff. So I decided I wanted to take a run at that. I needed to focus on something, and I knew that if I focused on it, I could turn it around. I say turn around. I could turn it into something much more than it was. Yeah. And I love Fort Worth. My partner's from Fort Worth at the time, but I knew he was destined for Dallas. And so, sure enough, he ended up in Dallas, and I ended up buying the magazine, Fort Worth Magazine, from
just that one individual magazine.
Just Fort Worth Magazine. So I divested myself of my stock, brought on a minority partner, in Bobby Patton, and we actually officed together for 2 or 3 more years. Because we had such a great relationship, and they ended up moving to Dallas, and I moved into Fort Worth.
So when he went to sell those other magazines, you're no longer part of that.
Right. So the other products, I divested myself of Signature Kitchens, of all the other products.
You regret doing that, or was it the right?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
It's been a whole lot more work. That's what I was saying. It's the multiples you can make on something like that versus a traditional magazine, completely different. And one of the products that we had started publishing is a magazine called REO, Real Estate Owned.
Okay.
default service.
Yeah.
So we changed the name of the magazine. We bought it from a guy, changed it to DS News, and we were starting a trade show around it. And so I was busy doing everything else. Mark was the visionary of our company, and he was out starting everything with me. But then he would lead me to put it all together and do all the the work there. And so I got so busy I just didn't have time. And so anyway, I ended up saying I need to pull away. But he ended up doing a trade show that ballooned into this massive deal. I mean, they've had George Bush speak at it. I mean, it's massive. And he's no longer in that. He ended up moving on eventually. But I would have made a lot more money had I stayed in. But I wouldn't be as satisfied, maybe.
Yeah. You wouldn't have. So
wouldn't have been.
So you launched Fort Worth Magazine, and I will just say, one of the things I wanted to talk about, and I think I've told you this before. I want to talk about like internet and how that changed everything, because that internet came and completely flipped your industry upside down, as it did movies and music and so many things. But I will, like, Fort Worth Magazine has just become such a pivotal part of our culture, and I feel like it's kind of the glue. You like highlight people and things that are happening. But for me personally, and Melissa, and for Sixth Avenue, my businesses, it like getting in the magazines gave us so much authority. And so I remember, like, I could never get a bank loan. We were flipping houses, and we look at all these houses we have done, and banks were like, nope, we're not lending money to a musician. But it wasn't until we were in the magazine, I think, like, that the magazine feed, like, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, now banks will lend to it.
You were on the cover, I think, weren't you?
Yeah.
One of our covers.
I don't know what. Yeah, I was on the cover. But the first one was you did a story on Melissa and I in our house.
Yeah.
And it was like, I remember Ed Bass was like, Jamey, I saw this. Like, it was one of the first times I met him. He's like, oh yeah, I read about you in the magazine. I want to see your house. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is.
Wow. You're like, that's cool.
Yeah. And then I was on the cover, which was a big surprise. Yeah. And, but yeah, it just it just gives you, it gives you a lot of authority. Like, the power it has for a local business is a really big deal.
Yeah.
And even now when I'm like, what are the new restaurants? I flip through the magazine. I have like a thing where I sit down on Sundays and I read magazines on the couch. But I'm like, what are the new, anyways, it's powerful. If you hadn't have done that, I think it shaped the community in a really big way. And one of my like just favorite moments in all of life, I'm on the cover of the magazine, and everywhere I would go, I would like intentionally obnoxiously go to places that had it. And I went to Central Market, and I would pick it up at Central Market and like show the cashier and be like, hey, have you heard of this guy? And Melissa would get really embarrassed.
Like, hold on, that looks like you.
Yeah, it was like this once in a lifetime opportunity where I get to say that.
Yeah, and that's in Central Market there was 10 registers, and they're all at every register, right?
Yeah. It felt like a celebrity. So you leave, you bring on a partner to go just deep dive into this.
Yeah, just focusing on it.
And you had a vision for, like, this could be more.
Yeah. We were just, it's a lifestyle magazine, and, Indulge at the time was doing something that we emulated, but we changed it up a bit because we still wanted the very high end Fort Worth market. Mm-hmm. And we're not apologetic about that. Some people get mad at us and they think, well, how come you don't represent, you're called Fort Magazine, but you don't represent Fort Worth. I mean, Fort Worth is more than just, people driving Range Rovers and Mercedes. And that's true, but we're not a city, we're a for-profit company. And we do editorially, we cover a lot in Fort Worth, but our demographic, and we're true to that demographic, is a high-end demographic. And I mean by that, high income. Yeah. And we do that because we are an advertising-driven product. Yeah. And city magazines are. So if you don't have that's the reason why Star Telegram and other newspapers are out of business almost, is that they're trying to be everything to all people. Yeah. And so all the vertical titles that have come up have driven everybody away from the newspaper. Mm-hmm. Well, of course, digital as well. But having your niche, having your market, you're in marketing, right? You need to know who you're talking to, who your audience. If you try to do too much, then, Star Telegram, they would put up their numbers against us. And I'm like, like we didn't have an audit early on. An audit is a circulation audit is what I'm talking about. And I'm like, why would I pay for an audit? It's just going to show the Star Telegram kills us.
Yeah.
And so people would say, no, I'm going to do the Star Telegram because the CPM is so much better. And I'm like, yeah, but 95% of the people that you're reaching can't afford to buy your product.
Yeah.
So it's waste.
We have this niche.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that was, obviously we created our niche but we didn't have any long form journalism happening. It was, a lot of, it's kind of what 360 has done, and, lots of pictures, not as much editorial, not as much deep diving into stories and people. So telling the backstories, which is what I love.
Yeah.
I love telling people stories.
Yeah.
So that's what we brought to the table that we weren't necessarily doing to start with. But when I took it over, I started doing much more of that.
Yeah. And I feel like it's progressively gotten, even in the past few years, I feel like y'all have gotten maybe more aggressive in interesting stories. Would you say that's true?
In what?
In interesting stories.
Yeah. Well, interesting is up for, I guess anybody could be what's interesting from this person may not be.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Stories.
In depth meaning not, cause you cover like the new restaurants, the new things,
right.
The house stuff, like the top real estate agents, but y'all do like some pretty wild stories too.
Long form journalism.
Yeah. Is what we call it. It would be the right.
Yeah. If you want to be technically correct.
Way to
long form journalism. So you're using a lot of words, cause it's like, gosh, I love that story, but I want to know more.
Yeah.
And so we don't do a lot of those. We don't do, because a lot of people still just like to look through it. Yeah. Still one of our best sections is the back of the book, and people look at the social column, right? Who went to what party, and I want to see their pictures. And but we put in there some deep features as well. Some of them are really deep, and some of them not as much. But that's what we started doing more of, is more long form journalism, kind of more like Texas Monthly.
Yeah, Texas Monthly style. Yeah. And so did it go well? You're going all in on this? Like, was it what you thought it would be? And then internet stuff starts happening around that time.
Yeah.
Because you started Panther
City Media Group.
Was this new company? Yeah.
So that was the parent company of Fort Worth Magazine.
Yeah.
So I started that company, and we brought in Fort Worth Inc. in 2015. So. And I'm not sure what your question was, but Panther City Media Group owns both titles.
But you started that, and then at what point did the industry got massively disrupted?
On the digital side?
On the digital side.
Yeah, that's where we were going. I knew that, and everybody knew. I mean, the print, the word on the street was print's going away. You go to the ad agencies, they're going, well, print's going out, man. I mean, it's not yet happened yet, but more people talked about it, and aren't you scared what's going to happen when everybody can get the stories online? And we weren't doing that, so I guess we had a digital flip book early on, but there wasn't as much traffic on it, and so, but I knew it was coming, and so we invested significantly in building up our digital clients, right? Our digital base. And so I guess probably 2011 is when that started. And I brought on a web guy, and I had two videographers on staff doing this kind of stuff. Literally, we were interviewing people. I had a TV show with Scott Murray.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was, we bought the time on Channel 11, and then and I had him and Amanda Mazey, who was the wife of TCU's baseball, one of their coaches back in the day. And we were doing a lot of video. I invested in growing that back then, way before anybody else did, which is why we are today. Our digital footprint is so significantly much higher than anybody else in our category. So like 360 does not hold a candle to us digitally.
Yeah.
They just press a button and send magazines to a demographic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what's interesting about the local side of things is like I used to get Rolling Stone magazine, and I used to get Entrepreneur, and I don't get any of those anymore, but I love getting the physical Forward magazine. I love getting like the physical thing.
Well, thank you.
And I think there's some like I don't think there was like physical went away on some level, but I don't feel like it went away as much on like the local level. Like
right, city magazines didn't get affected.
Yeah, which is
as much.
I don't know why that is.
I think it's because it's your city. It's almost like it's a, it's a piece of art on your table. Mm-hmm. It's I used to say it's a cocktail party in print.
Yeah.
And so you want to, and it's if it's a high end beautiful magazine, it actually looks really good sitting on your coffee table. You have two of them out front. Yeah. Uh-huh. Right. And it's almost like, oh, good. Here's a lifestyle magazine that I like. It represents something that I'm interested in.
But there's something about it, the local side of it is just more. I think as we've become increasingly digital as a society, there's conversely been a movement also back more towards local. I kind of want my local, authentic things. So, anyways, I think that's interesting. And then y'all's volume of, I wake up every morning, or I get into the office around like 8, and in my inbox I always have my Fort Worth Inc. updates. The date. Like I feel like that's my pulse. The volume y'all put out digitally on email is crazy, but it's also like it's how I keep. It's like my news.
I love that. Love hearing that.
It really is like that's how I know what's going on.
It's great to hear.
Which I know that's a lot of work. That's probably easier said than done.
The beauty of digital was, hey, paper printing postage, you don't have any of that. Mm-hmm. And that was you say, hey, everybody's going to be digital and it's free.
Yeah.
Which, one of the reasons why it's hard to scale in the magazine business is paper, postage, and printing.
It's expensive.
It's just, and that's a commodity that it goes up faster typically than other commodities. And so it continued to go up, and it makes it very hard to scale. But on the digital side, everybody's like, okay, this is great because we now have the ability to not print and not use any postage. And so we can just put it out there, and everybody will come.
Yeah.
And that's not always the case. And it takes a while to build it up. Mm-hmm. And there is competition. But the biggest issue is you've got to fill the tank.
And you got to be fast, I'm assuming.
You've got to put out a lot of content. Content is king.
Yeah. And
if you don't put out good content, and it's not put out regularly, you're not going to keep your audience. So if we stopped doing it, we stopped putting in material you liked or cared about.
Stop reading.
It's just the overhead that you have, not the outside costs, because we were doing one magazine a month. Mm-hmm. We're putting out more content in 2 days digitally than we put out the entire month. Right?
So your labor cost is way up.
Yeah. That's what they didn't tell you.
Yeah. Well, to walk me through scaling that too, because you have, and I think you're sort of this entrepreneur business minded person, but then and I was kind of alluding to this earlier, you're juggling creatives as well. Yeah. You're juggling these creative writers, photographers, graphic designers, you have a team, you have an advertising team, and folks who are selling advertising are totally different, breed than the person, writing this in-depth story. Like walk me through just kind of what you learned scaling and managing people and from a leadership perspective.
You've been in my space. When was the last time you were there?
I don't know. I've been a handful of times.
Okay, but like in the last 3 or 4 years?
Probably.
Okay, so I guess
probably
5 years ago, maybe, I don't know, time, it could have been 6 or 7, but we expanded and took so now we start on Camp Bowie and it goes all the way back to the main building, so it's like 6,000 square feet. Mm-hmm. And so when we redesigned our space, creative is here, and way on the other side of the office is the advertising department. Okay. For a good reason. Yeah. You're talking about managing people. In the old office, we were all in that front, and we were talking about earlier the high ceilings, and we didn't have, you didn't have privacy, but you had walls. We had vertical walls, but it was an open space concept. Yeah. And so if I was literally you had art directors on one side of a 6-foot wall, 7-foot wall, and then that was open on the top. And so they're selling and they're going, yes, we can do that. Of course we can do that. And then they hang up and then the art director walks over and goes, what did you just promise? Right.
Yeah.
And so, so that was something we did on the management side. That was probably one of the better things we have done. But scaling, you had asked that question. I saw it earlier in one of your handouts was, the question that you had asked was, what's one of the things that you've done to scale? That was been probably the most important. And for me, we do EOS traction, which has been so good for our company. I really don't know how. I wouldn't be where I am today without it.
Yeah, for those who don't know, it's the Entrepreneur Operating System.
Yes.
It's basically a structure for running meetings and setting goals and
Yep.
So did you hire an implementer to do it, or did you do it yourself?
We actually brought an implementer on, and the implementer stayed with us for the entire year. So they did they did all 4 quarterlies. So we did like an intense 2 or 3 day, and then he attended all of our quarterlies for the year and helped us.
So that's one of the best things you think you've done.
Absolutely. And part of that, I was going to say that's part of it. But the biggest part of the implementation of that is the integrator. So in EOS, one of the things they highly recommend is that you bring on an integrator, which is it's not the visionary, because usually it's the guy that owns a company, does all of it, and he is involved in everything. And what happens is he gets so busy in the business that he can't work on the business. And then and that's what happened to me over the years, so many times. There's a delegate and elevate in EOS. I implemented that, but I brought on the integrator, which Mike Waldom, who is my sales director. We're not large enough. We have 20 employees to have a separate integrator. So he is my sales director and integrator.
Yeah, he's the operations.
He is a master. He's one of those guys. He's one of the most gifted men I've ever known. He is right and left brain. I mean, he is a genius literally on both sides. Operationally, he is absolutely one of the best ever. And usually that's not the same when you have a sales director. They're not worried about the details. They're just worried about sales.
Yeah, but he can wear both those hats.
He wears both hats, and I brought him on as not only just integrator, but after I made him integrator, after a couple of years, 3 or 4 years, I brought him on as a partner.
Okay.
So he's the only one I have. And what that does is it makes him aware, and he's kind of that guy anyway, but most people, if they're your sales director, what are they worried about? Gross sales. I don't care what I have to get there. I just need to get there. Yeah. It doesn't matter if I'm spending a lot of the money, because all I care is the gross, because that's what I'm judged on. Well, what if the company's losing money, right? And they're not my fault. I'm bringing in lots of money. Well, you're the one that encouraged me or almost forced me into bringing on 2 more reps. And I can't afford those 2 reps because they're not making their numbers. He goes, yeah, but look at our gross. We've up 20%. I'm like, yeah, but we're losing money on that 20%. We need to change. So Mike is focused on the EBITDA because he now is profiting from the EBITDA, not just on the top line.
He's thinking like an owner.
He's thinking like an owner. Yeah. So that was I think probably the most important decision for us scaling to allow us to grow. That's amazing. Yeah.
What about the flip side of that? Like mistakes. Like things were like, this, we should not have done this.
Not have done.
Or learned this the hard way.
So I'll touch on it. So I brought on, I was back in 2011, we were doing the magazine, and our web presence we had none to speak of. We had a website, and if there's something I liked, somebody else was doing, I'd call and I'd tell the guy, and then I'd get a quote and they'd produce it, and then I'd pay them, but I wasn't leading at all, and I wasn't looking forward, and so it was just kind of I was doing the absolute bare minimum, which is what a lot of people were doing. So I said, I need to do something more here. Couldn't afford to go pay a lot of money to bring on somebody to do it, and so the web guy I was working with, I said, I'll make you a deal, entrepreneur. Let's see if I can do this and make it work for us both. I don't want to, the relationship we have doesn't work for me anymore, where I tell you to do it and you send me a bill, and you do it and I send me a bill. And I said, I want somebody to be forward thinking about this. I want to be thinking about how we can make money, how we can monetize digital. Yeah. What do we have to do? Because I'm not a digital guy at that time, and I didn't have, and I was so busy doing everything else, I couldn't do them both anyway. And so I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll bring you on, and I'm not going to pay you anymore. But if you want to do this, I will split digital revenue with you. But there's a catch. We have to bring in this much revenue in the first 3 years, and then. And then after that, every year after that, you have to bring in this much. Yeah. And I say my salespeople will sell it.
Yeah.
And you're going to help lead them, and then you're going to put the products together that will allow people to buy it. I mean, if you got to have the opportunities, you have to create those. I'll fund it. I'll do most of the funding, and then because there wasn't much there to fund, I already had the salespeople, right? So. And most of the stuff that was going to be done on his end, digitally. Well, we hit the 3-year mark, and we hadn't hit that number yet, but I didn't cancel the contract. And then we hit the next year, and it didn't hit the number, and then next one didn't hit the number, but I continued to have the relationship. But I could have done it myself and hired someone and paid them, and during that entire period. The reason I didn't is because I wanted to get there faster. And so we weren't going to get there faster. It just ended up didn't happen. And I finally had to terminate the relationship. And when I did, he turned around and we had a binding arbitration agreement, and he ended up filing an arbitration suit against us for wrongful termination. And so hindsight, I wouldn't do that type of a deal again. You got to know who you're working with.
Do you think it was like a partner who you're yoking yourself with, or like it was destined to fail, or like, the lesson gleaned from that?
The lesson, I should have done a background report, first of all. Anytime you're doing something like that, he seemed like such a great guy.
Yeah, because you're essentially going into a partnership.
It was like, hey, this is a win-win. Hey, all ships rise with the tide. Yeah. I don't mind if you make a lot of money. And matter of fact, I want you to make a lot of money, because if you make money, I'm making money. I don't mind splitting 50% of it with you. But I need to do it quickly. Yeah. And so what I didn't know is that he was, he was actually in the middle of a bankruptcy. And he had failed miserably at the agency. When I came in, he had this incredible space downtown, and he never mentioned the bankruptcy at all. I later found out, his partner who they split. He actually was selling the company, and the guy didn't end up buying. The company didn't end up buying the agency that he had, and they brought on one of the partners, but they didn't bring on this guy. And that was a huge deal. They didn't want him because he was so difficult to work with.
Yeah.
And so for me, if I would have done this again, first of all, if I would have just done that, if I had just done a background check, I would have known that he was in the middle of a bankruptcy.
Yeah.
I would have put on the brakes.
It puts a lot of different pressure. Yeah. But partnerships are hard. They can be a beautiful thing, and they can be just where your values are at, and how you see business, and how you see family, and how you see money, and how you I've had great experiences and I've had bad experiences with it, but it's a hard thing, because you're tying yourself, to another person, to another thing, and it's just, sometimes it's good for a season, and sometimes it's not. Yeah, but that's.
You know what? I'm gonna stray a bit, because I thought about this and I didn't know if you'd hit on it or not, but. It has to do with your gut feeling, and you were saying judging people, and it feels right, and the heart of someone, and you think people, and so one of your questions in your questionnaire was, what's the most important thing in your life? And
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, for me, one of the things is marrying my wife.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had been divorced before, and I was going to get remarried. At some point, I was going to get remarried. I knew.
Mm-hmm.
So I was divorced, and out of a divorce I didn't want to be out of.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had spent a lot of money with the counselor trying to keep it all working. And so I went to the counselor and I said, hey, I need your help. And he was like, well, hold on, you're not even in a relationship. What do you need my help for? And I go, I need to know now. I need to have some tips. What can I do to give myself a better chance next time?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he goes, well, my daughter's getting married in this year. And I told her that her and her husband had to take the MMPI, Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Test.
Okay. I've never heard of that.
And so they took that, and I said, well, what's that about? And he's like, well, it lets you know a lot about the person.
Yeah.
Because we all can look good on the outside.
Yeah.
We can all have great hearts, but maybe they weren't always that way. Maybe they have some baggage there that you don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
So on our third date, Camille and I, third date, I said, hey, this is going well. And I said, I've got 2 kids, young kids, and I can't afford to.
Yeah, risks are a bit higher.
So I said, if you want to go on a 4th date with me, we're going to have to take the MMPI.
Mm-hmm.
And so before we went on our 4th date, she and I went in and took a MMPI, and I call it the crazy test.
Uh-huh.
So I go, I've never taken it before. And I highly recommend this, by the way. I had never taken it before, so she will know if I'm crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'll know if you're crazy. And so I said, if you don't want to do it, I understand, but I can't move forward because maybe you are crazy, and that's why you don't want to take it.
Yeah.
And so we ended up taking the test, and it was wonderful. And there were some things I found out about her I didn't know, and some things about me that she didn't know. But at least we knew what those were. So I can't say now, I didn't know that when I married you.
Yeah.
Right. And it does make a difference because I never bring up that.
Yeah. Having some sort of objective outside read is helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. You can look at somebody and they look great. I mean, but we're human.
Yeah.
We're all human. And so there's stuff that we have that make us the way we are. And there's stuff that I thought when you fall in love with somebody, you're stupid. I mean, it's just right. I mean, we make stupid decisions. It's our heart. Yes.
Yeah.
And you don't know that there was some stuff there that hadn't been dealt with that needed to be dealt with.
Yeah.
It's going to affect you in a big way.
Yeah.
It's going to affect the way you raise kids.
And so you're saying don't trust your gut.
Yeah, I'm
much.
saying don't. I said, I'm saying, you need to do more than just trust your gut.
Yeah. And for business, that's so true. Like, and generally the problem with being a business leader is generally when you're hiring someone, you need someone now.
Right.
Like you're in that position.
Yep.
I need to get my digital going now.
Yep.
Someone quit or someone fired or like I have this opportunity. There's an urgency, and people always say, hire slow, fire fast.
Yep.
And it's like, I've heard that 800 times. I've told people that 800 times. I have not done that 800 times.
You and me both.
And like some of my biggest mistakes in business is not taking the time and not calling the references.
I'm glad I have company.
Yeah. And then not firing soon enough.
Yeah.
Like, cause I do think with your gut, like, very quickly.
Yeah.
It's not the right fit.
But you keep them because it's
personal.
Now I don't have the time to replace them.
Yeah. You don't have time, and firing sucks.
Yeah.
It's literally the most miserable, sad thing. I hate, like, so there's this emotional level. There's this but I would say so many of my business mistakes have not taking that advice, not taking my time, not doing the research, and also not acting quickly enough when it's like, this is not the right person.
Yeah.
Which is hard. It's easier. I've burned my hand on that stove.
It's one of those, what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes there are excuses why you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Firing is hard. Doing, reprimanding employees is hard. I have less of a an issue with that, even though it's not popular, because you're a people person too. So if you have somebody that works for you, you know their wife, you know their kids, you know, it's part of who we are. We want we want a family of people working with us. We're a family company kind of, and so you want that relationship. And then when you have the relationship, now you're talking about they're going to be without a job. It's almost Christmas. Right. And then so I can't do it now. Yeah. And his wife just lost her job, and but for us, at the bottom, at the end of the day, if having that person on board, is threatening your business success, then you have to do it. And sometimes I justify by saying, I can work with this person. I can make this work.
Yeah.
But is it the perfect person for the position? Yeah. Probably not. It's probably not they're not, they get it maybe, but,
yeah. One of the things I've been asking, one of the exercises I've been doing in my head the past several months is just saying to myself, if I was giving someone else advice, what would I say?
Yep.
Because it just flips the script. Or if I took emotions out of it, what should I do? Because when you're so close to it, again, there's this human element. If you generally care, but it's like if I was giving someone else advice and it wasn't my company, what would I tell them to do? And it kind of like gives you that different,
the traction KPIs, and accountability. To me, that's one of the best things you can do, because if it's not working, sometimes it's a personality thing. It's not working, but oftentimes
it's objective.
It's objective.
It's kind of like, hey, we didn't hit the numbers after 3 years, but I'm going to give you another year.
Yeah.
Hey, you didn't hit the number.
Well, but the point is, I mean, there are other jobs like art director, right? I mean, that's not
a little more subjective.
It's not a hard number there. So when you have hard KPIs that are related to numbers, then you can say, then it's easier, because you're like, hey, we didn't make it. We didn't make it. You know what? Maybe it's not you, but with you in this position, we haven't done it, so I've got to bring somebody else on. That's easier to do when you have good KPIs in place. When you don't, it's really hard, because now it's just like, I'm not doing well. What have I not done that you wanted? And if it's the artwork's it's not quite good enough. Yeah, that's subjective.
Yeah, that is subjective.
And it's harder because they can't understand.
And that's the hard thing about creative world, photography, graphic design, it's harder to put KPIs to those things.
Yeah, it is.
It's much harder. Okay, I want to pivot a little bit, because as you were coming in, we kind of talked about it. So part of writing stories, part of covering things, part of like choosing who do we feature, who do we not feature, having awards. You have several awards, different things that you do. Is I would assume you have made people mad by covering a story, or by not covering a story, or by taking a stance, or having an opinion feature, or like walk me through like how you have dealt with some of that. Are you someone that because again, I think you are a social person. You like people to like you. But how have you had to get thicker skin? And you're also kind of public, because you're the guy behind this big old magazine that everybody in Fort Worth has.
There are people that don't care what people think of them. And in a lot of ways, I respect those people. I appreciate the people, because they have that ability, and I'm just not one of them.
I'm not either.
I just care. I care about
like an Elon Musk who just does not care.
He doesn't care.
He doesn't care.
That's his.
But you're not one of those people.
No, he's part of that's a spectrum thing for him.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those guys, and I wish I was a little bit sometimes. But yeah, that's hard. I don't know. Bring me back, because I went Elon Musk, and then
dealing with you've probably made a lot of people mad.
Yes,
either from articles or from lack of articles.
Yeah, and I think you were saying, well, how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
I mean, there were some examples out there. I try not to. We are, for one thing, we do this. We are one of our mission is to celebrate Fort Worth and make it better. right? And so we have an opportunity to do negative stories. We could, the Fort Worth Weekly, they'll do whatever they can for a headline, right? If people will buy it, they're going to structure it or position it in such a way that it's going to bring in people and they're going to pick it
Ruffle some feathers.
Because they're not getting sources for their material necessarily. It's just, credible sources say.
I've been a victim of the Weekly a few times where they just post stuff that wasn't true.
Yeah,
they made up a story. Yeah.
So we make sure we don't do. We have to attribute everything we do. But when we make decisions on what stories we're going to run, the Shadow over Sundance Square was one, and I brought a copy. You saw it earlier. And
that was with all the 2020, like post-COVID Sundance and drama.
Downtown Sundance, there was so much talk about what was going on, and no one knew what was happening. And Ed and Sasha had started Fine Line, and most people didn't know that they now owned 38 blocks of Sundance, and the other Basses, the brothers, were out. They only own the towers, and a lot of people didn't know that. And all this was happening, and people were being, leases were going away, and there was just a huge change, and everyone was talking about it.
Yeah,
everybody, but no one wanted to write about it. Because a lot of, it's one of those taboo topics. We love our Sundance Square. It's one of the best things the Basses have ever done. It has changed our city more significantly than anything done in the last 40 years. Stockyards has been there, and it's great, and what they've done with that is amazing. But this is new, and what they did at Sundance was, so we have so much appreciation for what they do and what they did. But it was changing, and everybody knew and there was something happening, and they couldn't figure it out, and the Basses weren't talking, or Ed wasn't talking. And Sasha had become much more involved, and so no one would do the story, So we finally said, you know what, our objective is to celebrate Fort Worth and make it better. And so the justification here was we need to talk about it. We want to get the Basses involved. We want to get them to come out and give us the vision that they have, because that's a problem. No one knows the vision. Yeah. And if we knew the vision, we could probably go along with it, but you're not talking anymore. So we didn't know, because they used to tell people what they were doing, and parking is going away. And it's like, well, that's crazy. That stinks. I hate that. I can't believe you're taking parking away. That's horrible. And what I said as a businessman, I said, okay, they've been supplementing parking forever. And so they're paying for people to park downtown and just to help build up Sundance, not because it was non-profitable to do it. It was only big picture profitable. Yeah. But that was a huge risk they took in doing it, but they did it and funded it forever. If they would just come out and said, hey, we're not doing parking anymore because we have paid for it for 20 years, and that was our original idea, 20 years, and we're going to stop funding it, or it's just gotten to be a cost, a line item that's too heavy for us to carry anymore. If they would have come out and said that, people would have understood. Yeah. But they didn't. And so now they're just complaining. They're getting rid of the parking, and they're not renewing leases. So we wanted to get their official opinion, and we were granted an interview, first one that Sid or Ed has done in 15 years probably. And we sat with Sasha and Ed, so it was myself and my Fort Worth Inc. editor at the time. And they were giving us an hour. And so Ed was with us an hour and 45 minutes, maybe 2 hours. And then Sasha was with us another hour. So we had 3 hours to talk with them before we did the story. After the story was published, their PR person said they felt ambushed. They think the story was sensational. And not that I was invited to many Bass functions before, but I'm certainly never going to be invited ever to a Bass function again, because they were not happy with the angle that we took. Yeah. And we did exactly what we said we were going to do. We provided the facts, right? Everything was attributed. We didn't come up with conjecture. We didn't create something that wasn't there. And I was really hoping it would go the other way. I was hoping they would be able to come out with a plan that we get everybody's support. They didn't.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do stories like that, but we don't typically do those because we just, hey, a lot of people can report on other stuff. We like making people happy.
Yeah.
And so the thought was, by doing this story, maybe it'll change how Sundance is being handled, and that's a good thing for our city.
Yeah. So sometimes you have that, and then the folks are not happy.
Yeah, I did get in one. I said something about, talk about demographics, and in our Fort Worth Inc. magazine a few years back, right after COVID, I said something about our demographic being this.
Yeah.
And the Fort Worth Weekly took it and ran with it, and they were like, the person's point was, you need to represent all of Fort Worth, not just these people that are making this much money, and fit in this, window of who you are. And I'm like, well, that's a business model. That's not, I'm not the city. I'm not passing any judgment at all. It's just that this is what it is.
Yeah, this is our niche.
It's a demographic.
Yeah, this is our niche. Yeah.
And
but you can't, and I think to your point of earlier, Star Telegram trying to be all things to all people. When you're all things to all people, you're nothing.
Yeah.
So
and that did not go well because it was, people hear what they want to hear, and so the person that was on the other side of this took it and ran down this path that was ugly and spun what I said into something that it wasn't. And so, Brian Bird, he was a city councilman at the time. He reached out to me, and we met with the person that wrote this in my office during COVID. At the end of the meeting, the person said, if it wasn't COVID, I'd hug you right now. But she never went back and said on her podcast or in the weekly, hey, we spoke and we've resolved this. This is really what he was talking about, and we were on the same page, and we appreciate him being up front. Yeah. None of that happens, right? That didn't. So that happens, and it's not good. Unfortunately, most people don't see that.
Yeah, most people don't see that. Yeah, I've been there a couple times.
Yeah,
I've been there. Yeah, but it's hard. But you can't make everybody happy, and it's also like if you're doing something meaningful, some folks are gonna throw rocks at it, no matter what. Let's pivot. Walk me through just sort of staying grounded and how you do that, juggling a big team, riding the waves. Like what's sort of like a day in your life? Are there habits, rhythms, things that you do that help set you up for success as a leader and help you stay grounded and help you balance and all of that? You've been doing this now for a while. I'd be curious, are there any tools in your tool belt that help you? And when it's hard, when you have those kind of moments like you just described.
Yeah. I think as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we all have the tendency to get sucked into the day-to-day. And that's certainly for me. And I'm a servant type leader, and I'm there usually before everybody, and I'm the last to leave. And so, we oftentimes get caught up in the day-to-day. And so, again, Traction has been a huge help for me there. I can't imagine where we would be with our goals if we didn't do that. Because, you blink your eye, and it's a year. We've been needing to do this. We've been talking about it, but then nobody ever does anything about it. Right? Yeah. We say, let's do this. And we say, well, I tell you how many times I walked out of a meeting, I felt so good about what we're going to do. And then 6 months later, I'm like, whatever happened? We
haven't done a single thing.
No one, that's because no one was assigned the task, and everybody assumed somebody else was going to do it. And it just, and I actually assigned somebody to do it, and they were going to do it, but it wasn't memorialized.
Yeah.
And so, and I go, guys, all right, who was responsible? And the person that's responsible for it, that's in the room, they're not going to put their hand up.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know that it was me that didn't do what I was supposed to do, I'm not going to tell you. And that happened to me so many times. It was, as an owner, it was so frustrating because we had spent so much time talking through it, and then it didn't happen. And ultimately, that was my fault as a leader because I didn't have the structure set to enforce it. And, the quarterly offsites in the EOS really help with that. And so that's a big thing. And then one of my, so on your scorecard, you have to do certain things, and everybody's reporting on what's important. So if I'm on a desert island and I'm running the business from there, I just need the bullet points and to see if this business is successful or not. One of mine is meeting with key executives in Fort Worth.
One of yours on your
so I'm on the desert island, but I'm still reporting back if I wasn't on the desert island. If I was here reporting back to my boss, which I don't have one, but if I was, then that's what I would be reporting on. So for me, one of the most important things is to be able to get out. And even though I'm out a lot in our events doing those, outside of that, I'm in my office a lot. I'm not out. And so it's like, hey, let's go meet for, a late lunch or an early 4:00 beer at so-and-so. I'm like, dude, I mean, I never go at 4:00 beer time. It's like, I don't do the 3-hour lunch. I just don't. I mean, I can meet for breakfast. I can meet for lunch, but I mean, I don't ever meet after work for business unless it's.
I don't do lunches or coffees.
Okay.
Ever.
Okay.
Like, be real. Like, this is so hard. Like, because I have so much work to do.
Yeah.
And it's very disruptive to like stop what you're doing, go get in the car, go drive someplace. And I know like networking and relationship wise and But anyway, all the being said, I can relate to some of that.
But for me, I got to eat. I usually eat at my desk.
Yeah.
In coffee I drink, but I don't typically go to drink coffee in the morning. I just make it and come to the office. But I meet with people early, so I can meet with them like at 7:30, 7 o'clock, 7:30, and I'm, if I meet with them 7:30, 8:30, I'm 10 minutes late to the office.
Yeah.
So my objective, KPI, is to meet with once a week, have some interaction with a CEO, high-end executive, not necessarily somebody that can affect my business right now, but they're people that are in Fort Worth that are in the know, that I can learn something from, that I can maybe benefit them, they can benefit me, and I can find out, and I'm building relationships. So that's one of mine, and I think it's.
Has that been good? Have you enjoyed that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing this, by the way.
Yeah.
Because of that, I get to count it as one of mine. This week
I got counts. One. Yeah,
I got one, and I don't do it every week, and so I try to. That's my goal.
Yeah.
But I think that's been helpful. It's been helpful for me, because like you were saying, you don't do coffee, you don't do lunch. And so if you're not doing these, when are you meeting with these executives that maybe down the road you'll call on them for business, right? You need a favor. They need a favor. Something that, and it's like, no, Jamey, we had coffee once 2 years ago. Great conversation.
Yeah.
It's
an interesting balance because I feel like a lot of my success in my life has been from relationships and doing that and making myself available and connections. And then also I get in like hermit mode and I'm like, I just want to grind away.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to be antisocial and just build things. But you need both. There is an intentionality of both those. So for you were saying having things like EOS have been hugely helpful, having these relationships, and putting on a scorecard. I'm going to go network and glean wisdom and build.
Yeah. Otherwise, if you're not being held accountable, I mean, I need to be held accountable just like everybody else.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's one of our biggest issues is holding people accountable. We had
I'll bring it a little closer
in our weekly level 10 meetings, which is an EOS thing. We have to go over our accountabilities and we have to report on those. And if you're not reporting on them, I mean, literally, like, you turn around in 6 months. It's like I've just been focused, right? I've been working. I can say I worked, but you're not doing some of the big things, the more important things that are. They don't seem important now, but really they lead to more important things.
Yeah.
So that's something that I know I need to be doing. So that's what I'm held accountable to do.
Things that push the company forward.
If I didn't have to report on it, I guarantee you it would be maybe once a month.
Yeah.
Right. So I just wouldn't do it. I mean, because it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Those are good.
You got to be intentional about it.
Those are really good. What about, we started talking about this earlier, but any any books or resources or things that were very like influential in sort of your journey as a leader, entrepreneur?
Of course, Traction, we talked about that. Good to Great, a great book, and a lot of great stuff in that, which is pulled from other stuff that other people have done, but it's a really well-written and inspiring book. And then A Purpose-Driven Life is, it's an amazing book. It's a book that I read a number of years ago, and my son is working at an RV dealership in Rockwall, and I gave him the book. I guess it's been about a month and a half ago. After that, I think the 10th day I'd given it to him, he goes, "Hey, Dad, you know that book you gave me?" Yeah. He said, "I've already read 27 chapters." Yeah, and he goes, cool. And so it's, it is to me. Life is. It's not all about business. And one of the things he was struggling with is he's like, "Hey, I'm making really good money now, and he's like me in a lot of ways. And it's important to be able, he didn't have a family, but kind of, we feel like, our worth sometimes if we're the provider, if we're making money, that we check that box, and that's important. As a man, it's important. It's females too, and no question, but, we're just kind of more that way, I think, oftentimes. And so he was like, "Hey, I'm making lots of money. And I don't know. I feel like I thought I'd feel differently. I thought when I was making that much money, I'd feel accomplished, and I don't." And so I gave him the book, and he is. We've talked about it a couple times. We're gonna go back through it and have him read it again, and I'm going to read it again.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And then we're going to get together and talk through it. But I think that to me is incredibly powerful because it's not all about us.
Yeah.
Living for other people. We have a purpose, and it's not just serving us, right? So if y'all don't know, listen to this. It's a Christian book, and it's about serving God, and He has us here for a purpose. And it's not just doing business.
Yeah, I think that's the most important, but because it's like, and I think it's cool for him to realizing that soon. Sometimes it took me a long time to realize that, but it's like, no matter the fame, the money, all those things doesn't make you happy, and so if you don't have a foundation of more than that, if it's just about you, it's like it's an unfulfilling place to be. Like, some of my most depressing moments were the days after like our biggest concerts ever, where it's like, we did this thing, and then I'm like, why do I have this giant hole? Yeah. But having a foundation of it's not about you, and you can't shake it. And I know for you and I are similar, like it's God's love and acceptance for us and that purpose, which is what the book is about. But it just gives you a bedrock where you can weather the storms. You can weather when it's good. My identity is not all in this. You can weather when it's bad. It's I think that's a great one. I think it's a foundation.
Yeah, it's a philosophy. Our corporate philosophy, which is on our business cards, is to honor God in all that we do. And it goes on business cards. If you don't want it on your business card, you just don't get business cards. And that's happened before. And you don't have to believe in God to work for my company. Yeah. But what you do need to know is that that it is the way I run my company. And if there's something that's not honoring to God, that I won't do it. And I do certain things in like coverage editorially. People, well, what does that mean? What does it look like? Well, editorial, there's some that I don't cover because it's not honoring to God for me to do it. Yeah. And there's, and my editors and I get into arguments about it sometimes, respectfully. Yeah. And they respect my position. And when I bring people on, I tell everyone this story. I'm like, hey, this is what it means for me. And, I'm not going to push God on you, but just know that's the way we run the company, and it's part of our DNA.
I love that. That's cool. Very cool. What advice would you give your younger self?
What advice would I give?
Yeah, your younger self. If you could go back.
Great question. I think probably, especially when I was younger, is don't be afraid to take calculated risks.
Mm-hmm.
And, branching off and buying Forward magazine was a calculated risk. I didn't know if it would, what happens if, and so that making a decision, and that's so calculated risks, huge.
Mm-hmm.
And because a lot of people don't, that's why a lot of people don't work, or they work for somebody else, right? Mm-hmm. They have ideas, they have this, but they're not going to pull the trigger and take the risk.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, especially when you're younger, if you don't have kids, even what kills me, what is hard to me today is like, if I was trying to do this today with kids and a family, and I was going to start up something and then if I went bankrupt, then what?
It's much harder now, than just like your 20s.
Well, actually, now I'm 60 and my kids are out of school, and so except for my youngest, which I have another, my wife, I got remarried, 15 years ago, and I've got a 14-year-old, so still got that at home and loving it. But so taking risk calculated. And, swinging the bat, right? So we did a book back in the early days when we were doing books, and Mark, my partner, did a book. It was part of the company that I was on the agency side, but the book was from Bobby Bragan, who was a National League player, American League, and he was also a coach, and he coached in the major leagues, and he coached the Fort Worth Cats, mm-hmm. Fort Worth team. And then he wrote a book called "You Can't Hit a Ball with a Bat on Your Shoulder." Mm. And so you got to swing the bat.
Yeah.
If you want to get somewhere, you got to swing the bat. And, Babe Ruth led the American League and led the nation in home runs. But most people don't know that he was a strikeout king for 5 seasons in the American League.
Was he really? I didn't know that.
He had more strikeouts than anybody.
Really?
Yeah. So
what a cool anecdote.
Yeah. So, they don't talk about that. He was one of the biggest home run hitters of all time. Mm-hmm. But he swung the bat.
Yeah. I love that. Those are really good. Take risks, calculated
risks.
Swing the bat. Okay. A couple quick questions. And I'll have my final close it up. What's your go-to meal in Fort Worth?
Restaurant or meal?
Yeah. Restaurant meal.
Restaurant meal.
Yeah.
It depends on the mood I'm in. Used to be for a really nice dinner. Used to be Del Frisco's, not anymore. Mm-hmm. I probably right now would go Capitol Grill for mm-hmm. the best steak for me. Wicked Butcher. Mm-hmm. Maybe go Wicked Butcher today, but they're really close.
Yeah.
And so I would go there for the high end meal. You can't ever beat Joe T's for Mexican food.
Yeah.
And I don't care what people say. It's good. I think the food's really good.
I love Joe T's.
And the atmosphere is the best.
It is.
Right. Other than the line, if you can avoid that, you're golden. But yeah, Mexican food for sure. Joe T's. And I typically on my fast food, I'm a low carb guy during the week, so I'll do chicken salad chick.
Oh, you will?
Right, just no bread, just chicken salad, or Chipotle without the rice and tortilla.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Favorite place to get a cocktail?
By the way, let me go back. Okay. Rio Mambo, we do it every single week, at least once or twice.
Oh, you do Rio Mambo every week?
So
this is like go-to family night.
So, yeah, I say Joe T's is great because the ambiance, but the food at Rio Mambo. And I created a drink on the menu, so if you ever go to Fort Worth, or if you ever go to Rio Mambo, any of them, and order the Fort Worth Margarita.
Oh, really? So that's your drink?
So it's the Fort Worth.
That answers that.
Mag. So it's margarita. No one really gets it, I don't think. I thought people would, but they don't.
Wait, what's in it?
It's called the Fort Worth Mag.
Yeah, how do you make it?
Not Marg. It's spelled Mag. And it was our favorite drink. I created it with the owner, Brent Johnson. And it's a schooner, frozen. And It's got a champagne, the little cooked champagne, the dry champagne.
Oh, interesting.
That balances out the sweetness, and it's flipped over inside the schooner. And there's a small half shot of Grand Marnier.
Oh, okay.
So it's the.
I'll have to try that.
So it's don't drive if you had two.
Okay.
Yeah.
The champagne.
We call it the sleeper.
Yeah.
Because it'll put you to sleep. It's great.
That's a fun one. Okay. Other quick question: have there been any like people you've covered where you geeked out? Like, I don't like musicians, athletes. Like, is there anybody where like, okay, I want to go be there for that interview?
But I want to be at the interview.
Yeah, be at the interview, and that you were like, we're kind of geeking out over.
I know where you're going with this. And so on the magazine, what came to my mind is it's related to that. So it's a book project that I did. So something I did in my business that I regretted not taking advantage and being on the interview. We were doing books when I started. Remember Mark was doing that, and he had and right after I started at the ad agency, he was doing a book on Ronald Reagan. It was the authorized pictorial history of Ronald Reagan. And I just bought my house, and he goes, Hal, I know you're a huge Ronald Reagan fan. We're going to go hand Ronald Reagan the book, and would you like to come?
You said no? And
I thought it was going to be a smile, shake, take a picture and go. And it's still, I would love to have done that. Yeah. But he said, I'll cover your hotel room and food, just pay for your flight. And it was, I just bought my house, and I was 24, 5 years old, and it was like $1,500 for flight or airfare or something. It was expensive.
Yeah.
And I go, I can't afford it. I said, I'd love to, but I can't. And I thought it was going to be, they spent 2.5 hours in his office shooting it and talking and pictures. And it was just three people. It was Mark, one other person, and it would have been me. And I said no. And I didn't do it. So that was my biggest regret one that I should have said yes to. Cover the Taylor Sheridan one. We covered him. That's when I said I definitely have to be on.
Did you go out to that?
Oh yeah.
Was it cool?
Of course, 4-6's Ranch.
Yeah, I would kill to go see that thing.
Yeah, and we were on horseback together. I was me and him, and then.
Are you riding horses with him?
Oh yeah,
how fun!
They were cutting cows, and it's we have it's a great photo essay. If you haven't seen it, it's great. You can look it up online. It's on. He's on the cover. Taylor is. That's when I said, I definitely need to be on that one. Okay, because cool. he's a Fort Worth guy. Yeah. Most people didn't know he went to Pascal High School, and so he's done a lot, obviously for Fort Worth. Yeah, bringing the film world here, huge. Yeah. Those are fun. Those are good stories. Okay, final question is legacy. What does that word mean to you? One of I read that question, and what came to mind was Amon Carter. And I have, I've held him up here he's like, I'm never going to be Amon Carter. And no one ever will, because the time of Fort Worth, growing at that time, what the influence that he had and what a newspaper could do at that time. It was not what it is today. There's so many news sources now, right? But that is a huge, huge thing that he did in Fort Worth, what he did over his career and how much notoriety he brought to our city, and his publications. They did a great job of telling stories, a lot of that. And so, when you think back about, they got a hat named after him, right? It's one of the small things that he has going for him, but he left a legacy in Fort Worth for what he did philanthropically, what he did business-wise. I don't know anybody else that really has matched that. The Basses have done so much, but yeah, he is, because he's in the same industry. And he, by the way, was a sales guy. Okay. He was not a creative. Yeah. He was the sales guy that bought the paper. And his I bring my lunch to Dallas so I don't spend money in their economy. That was one of his, and he's got so many wonderful things legacy wise that I look at and say, man, I'd love to be considered something like that. So when it's all said and done, as a person, what he did in Fort Worth, and as a business person and as a publisher, what he was able to do for Fort Worth, I would love to be able to have someone think, hey, man, Hal was kind of like that. I'd be okay with that. He's kind of got a legacy like that on a different scale.
Yeah,
I would be happy with that.
Yeah, I think you have that. I think Fort Worth would be very different without the magazine. My personal career, business wise, like as I told you earlier, it really is like a community glue and a culture glue, and you highlight so much that's going on and people that are doing neat things, and then it just brings So in my day and age, it has made a huge impact. So thank you doing it. Appreciate you doing it.
Yeah.
Thanks for spending all this time and sharing your story with us. What a fun one. And then what's next? Anything new and exciting on the horizon?
We've got dream homes, dream streets are a big part of our company. And we've got some great things happening. We got a dream home we're doing in Aledo this year. And Aledo, as you know, is blowing up, and they've got the Blue Jack Ranch, which is the Tiger Woods golf course, which, side note, I lived across the street from that with 28 acres for 25 years.
Oh, really?
And I sold it in 17. And now they put Tiger Woods golf course across the street.
Yeah, it'd be worth a lot.
So the guy who bought it is going to kill whenever he sells. So, and then between here and there, where Whitestone is, right past that is the new Discovery Land, which is the Vaquero, people that develop Vaquero and places all over the world, high end development. So that's incredible for us as a city, what they're doing, and it's going to bring in business. And for us, if we can get our dream streets, and we're meeting with them about doing a dream street there.
Oh, that's cool.
So in a number of ways, those two developments are going to be a big part of what people are talking about over the next couple of years, because the Tiger Woods golf course, the second one ever in the U.S., and then the Discovery Land, they have an 18-hole golf course, a 12-hole golf course, and then a 3-hole course, all right there. Yeah. So it's going to be an amazing resort.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Hal, thanks so much, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.
Congratulations, you made it to the end. Appreciate you listening. If you enjoy what you heard, if you enjoy these episodes, please subscribe and like and share wherever you listen to podcasts. When you do that, it goes a long way and helps us continue to produce great new content. This episode is brought to you by 6th Ave Storytelling, where we help businesses grow their brands through the power of storytelling. If you're an entrepreneur who is interested in learning more about that, please visit 6thAveStorytelling.com today.